especially because Mercury was in Cancer. It's more intuitive, so it's more intuitive in a way where he probably overshares, or maybe not even overshares, overthinks things through an emotional level through Cancer. So it's very much like, I need to process, is this going to take some time? So he probably kept a lot of secrets, especially also because it was in the 8th house as well. So so that's very interesting that I find that here. So you could see the way he talks sometimes, he kind of questions it. If you ever seen him in interviews, he talks very like, he smiles a lot, he does that, because that's like his expression is very Mercurian. It's like attached directly to his sun. So his vitality comes through when he's doing things that are very Gemini, very game oriented, youthful, very Mercurian, very like all about communication, games, sort of that one-on-one sort of relationship, sort of very Mercury. But again, because of the 7th house, he's also Libra, so he likes being social. He enjoys, gives him a lot of energy, gives him a lot of, even though his way of communication still kind of gets hindered and he's overthinking things internally, maybe expressing it not so internally, like it's what he expresses probably isn't exactly what he wants to say. Okay. So, I've been peeling my lips here, so it's kind of dry. So, in any case, what else was there? Because of where the sun is, we have to look at where sun, where it rules. We have to look at Leo. Where's Leo here? Leo is in the cusp of the 9th house, so that means that we have here Ceres, which is actually interesting because it's now conjunct his cusp here. But let's just look at the 9th house for a second here, because Leo is there. His 7th house stuff extends over, so his sun, his vitality, what makes him happy, what makes him sort of like come alive, extends over to his philosophy, or at least philosophy pertaining specifically to Ceres stuff, so self-nurturing, self-care. Probably as he was growing older, when he went to university or college or whatever, higher education, or his own beliefs about himself, is that it should be about being able to shine through Leo, right? Ceres was in Leo when he was born. So that means that is it? Yeah, it's a 10 degrees, yeah. So that means it's all about self-care through artistry, self-care through creativity, self-care through, not always being so overly generous, but balancing that. But also ego stuff, right? Things that make him proud, but not too proud. Ceres allows us to realize that it's like, maybe you don't need to always take care of others, but take care more of yourself. Or maybe the opposite, right? Because it's in Leo, it's more about the self, it's more about self-care, what I can do for myself so that I can eventually become generous. But because we're talking about the sun rules Leo, and Leo was in the cusp of his rules, basically the sun rules his 9th house, any sort of happening stuff he's related to, really, it's also tied into 9th house stuff. So business ventures as well, but also like the philosophy of his own personal beliefs about himself. This is called the superconscious. The 9th is the superconscious, so it's what he's going to be fully aware of as he's growing older, right? Or as he was growing older. Not so much sure about Vesta here. I don't want to talk about Vesta right now. But yeah, and we also look at its natural ruled house. So we have the sun, right? It naturally rules the 5th house because of Leo. And because Leo, because it's in the 5th house, we have here Eris and part of fortune. So part of fortune here is in Aries, just like Eris is. It's actually conjunction, which is interesting because Eris to me is, it's funny because Eris to me particularly would rule the 7th house. When I say would, I mean because it's not certain yet, but to me kind of like it ties in, because Eris is like discord. Eris creates a lot of, it's like a testy sort of part of ourselves to question what this way in order for it to balance, right? Unlike Venus, which also rules Libra, Eris does more than that. If you talk to people who are Librans, they kind of set themselves back and set themselves apart, be observational and see what's going on. There's a very Aryan energy, sort of Aryan, whatever, where it's like you test the waters and see what goes well. And my mom's a Libra, like many people I know who are Libras, they tend to not take sides. They want to make sure that things are balanced, but in order to do that, they must test it. They must say, what about this? What about this? Are you sure about that? What about this? Not necessarily always like the way I do, which is like anger, but more about, or like resentfulness, but more about, well, what about this? You know, Eris was said to have brought the apple to kind of test the other goddesses. And then she stood back and said, okay. You know, it's kind of like, she's like a tester. She basically creates war that way, right? She's the brother of Aries or Mars. And so it's like, she's like the tester. She's also the goddess of, what is this? Retribution. So in a way, relates to resentfulness, right? Probably like sort of like light-hearted vengeance. That's why she laughs at like the tribulations of people. Like, ha ha ha! I told you so. I have this. I know what to do. I have this knowledge that outers there, because Eris is placed far off, right, close to Pluto. So it's very Plutonian in effect as well. So it kind of reveals the truth, but in this case, to test it, to see. Okay, that's what you want. Sure, let's see. That's very much like, you know, but that's the more dark side of Eris. Like that's the shadow of Eris. The one that's more positive, I would say positive, is Eris brings about thoughtful action, or rather the opposite, or vice versa, where it's like a thought that is not just thought. It's thought that is like, what about this? Well, have you ever considered this? That's the way I understand it. So I could be wrong, but either way, it feels like that to me. So with Eris ruling also the 7th house, it extends over to naturally because of the sun here. And it ties in because it's like Eris, you know, part of fortune is also conjunct in the 5th house, but it's in Aries. So Eris actually conjunct part of fortune means that probably a lot of leadership roles. He's able to offer leadership and also be a leader to people. Funny because like Gemini is not really it's a mutable sign, but surprisingly because of part of fortune reveals his strengths, his gifts, his talents, and where he shines the most, in terms of like where he gets his fortunes, like, you know, his strengths. So helping children as well, right? In this case, or recreational sort of like romances, he's able to uplift people. That's why if you look at his roles, I don't know, he tends to pick roles that are like supportive and uplifts people, sort of like it's a leadership role. So it's kind of interesting. I don't want to get too much into the 5th house stuff. We're not here for the 5th house. We're here for the sun. But anyway, so it extends over to the 5th house, just as it does to the 9th house as well. So we have all those things. So anyways, this video has gone really long. I want to talk more about this one, but if you have any questions, maybe we'll talk more about that. And if you have specific questions about this chart as you see it, go ahead, type it down in the comments below. In any case, I hope this was at least enlightening a little bit about Chris Evans. Again, this is just his birth chart. Based on this one compared to his relocation chart, we don't know. So very interesting stuff, right? So yeah, I hope that was enlightening or fun for you guys. I'll see you guys later though. Bye.